Forget about all the accolades. I'm going to show you why strength of character is the real secret to outstanding leadership. So, question for you, are you living for resume virtues, or are you living for eulogy virtues? Resume or eulogy virtues? You can't always control the breadth of your leadership, but you can control its depth, is what we want to talk about today. There are circumstances where you may not be able to get the promotion to have a greater influence or have the scope of leadership you would like to have, but you can always control how deep it goes. And that comes into the strength of our character.
So you're really asking, we're really asking, are you measuring the right thing? Yeah. I think it can get super frustrating for us as leaders when we're not measuring the correct thing. And as Bill mentioned, this is the ability to think of your depth of impact rather than the breadth of it. So not necessarily, can I grow my company? I mean, obviously those are great questions too, but we want to challenge you with today's episode to really think through, how deeply and meaningfully can I influence those under my leadership?
Yeah, and there certainly are times where you can control and grow your business or grow your organization, nonprofit, or where you are, but there are also circumstances where you just maybe this is what I can afford to pay for my staff at this moment. I can't hire more, but you can still have a great opportunity there to influence the ones in front of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So just a little point of information from the World Economic Forum. Among our findings, it says only 13% of employees say their leaders usually take a stand on moral topics. Only 17% put principles first. And only 14% acknowledge their own failings. And lastly, only 13% make amends when they're wrong.
So you can already see, I think, the connection of where we're going to go with this. If we're thinking depth versus breadth, how meaningfully can I, add value or influence?
Right.
This is really going to be, I think, a question of character when you boil it down.
I think so. And I think to state the obvious, the stronger, the better quality of character that we have, the greater the influence, the more we will have people looking up to us or looking towards us for answers or wisdom or guidance or solutions or whatever the case may be.
So this really, again, it was probably going to be a character challenge. I mean, the World Economic Forum also states, managers who score high on acting with humility by acknowledging their failings, right? Changing their minds when they realize they're wrong, making amends and asking for help. They are, get this now, 22 times more likely to be trusted by their colleagues.
Yeah, and you and I have seen trends. You and I look at the differences between different generations. As new generations have come along, there's been a steadily increase value placed on transparency, right? And this is just a key indicator of that. Transparency matters, right?
Yeah, for sure. And a couple of quotes too that we found in regards to this, because again, some of these numbers, for us, when we read them, kind of staggering a little bit to think how low people really trust those that are leading them.
It was like I knew it was probably low, but I didn't realize it was that low. Yeah.
But G. Allen Bernard, he says, he's the president of Midmark Incorporated, I think it is. Yeah. The respect that leadership must have requires that one's ethics be without question. A leader not only stays above the line between right and wrong, he stays well clear of the gray areas.
Yeah. I was talking to a coworker recently, and he does a lot of coaching, wrestling and stuff at school. And he described a scenario where one of his wrestlers lost the match and got up angry, took off his headgear, threw it to the floor, and he said, "Okay, there's a teaching opportunity. Let's go talk." And he said, "Look, all honesty, I've thrown my headgear to the floor before, but I went into the locker room and I was making sure I was alone, and then I released my frustrations, right? because he wanted to set that example among his coworkers and even with the other team. And he came back out with shook hands with the other coach, the other players he's competing against, just to have that good team spirit. And we're not saying it's possible to have this perfect character and never fall. I think if you're a part of the human race, welcome to the journey, right? We're all in process, but the question comes down to, are we just trying to be intentional about growing our character? Are we self-aware, and are we looking at ways to improve and be better at it? So,
and I think too, this spills into, hopefully you'll see the connection. We've been able to make it, in our places of employment, this connection where this isn't just thinking through, okay, how deeply can I affect the people because that I'm leading, but it is all about that because it also spills into how you do, as these quotes were talking about, how you actually conduct yourself when it comes to business time at the end of the day. You're asking your employees to do certain things. If they know beyond a shadow of a doubt, your character is upstanding. They're not worried about, what's he doing behind closed doors with our clients? What kind of deals is he making? Is it shady? Because those that we lead, their name is on our ballot and and vice versa. But yeah, so it's kind of a big deal. Ruby Nadler, PhD leadership consultant, she says, character is one of the most important elements of leadership. A leader's character determines what they pay attention to, who they spend time with, how they receive feedback, and whether they're able to make effective judgments, like I was just saying, and decisions. In short, character is the key to success.
Yeah. Again, it's not about the breadth, the scope, but the depth of our leadership. What really matters.
Yeah. And as we jump into this, I'll just share, quickly. For me, in my role, at the church where I serve, I would love to be able to go bigger. I would love to have, like we're kind of thinking and praying and walking through the idea of putting up a gymnasium, taking down an older section of the building, put up a gymnasium, big reconstruction process. And I'm all fired up about it. I'm like, man, that would bring in a bunch more kids. We could partner with the town, like the schools, and maybe have like a youth center type of a thing going on, and after school programs. And I'm thinking, again, breadth, wider, impact and all. And sometimes that can be, in your vision casting, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. That's great, and we're working towards that. We want to aspire to that. But we have to, as the phrase you use, kind of grow where we're planted, right? Which is important for our personal character. But also, what more can I be doing to add value and influence those I'm leading right now? And you don't want to lose the depth, because you're so focused on the breadth.
And we were just talking just before we pressed record how when looking for a new volunteer to fill this need, it's like, well, this person's already volunteered, this person's already volunteering, this person's already volunteering. And the opportunity to find a new volunteer at our church to step up, everyone has a full plate already. So again, that's another way your breadth could be limited, but you still have opportunity for depth to focus on that growth.
Yeah, and there is too, you're going to share a quote right here about kind of that whole promotion idea, and the higher you get. Share that quote with us.
Yeah, the higher the promotion, the greater the disconnect from your frontline people. It's just another way to be aware of, you don't have exactly a clear view of what's going on. Where you stand all depends on where you sit, I like to say, right? And if you're sitting up higher a couple of levels than your people down below, are you really engaged with them? Do you know what's going on? Are you aware of their character, the struggles that they have? What are you doing to look and help and serve them as they work in the business or work in the organization or the nonprofit or whatever it may be, right? So,
yeah. And that's, and again, I filter this through my personal experience, and, even with some of the things that we have that I'm responsible for now, one of the things I try to think through, I think we mentioned this in a previous podcast maybe, but every so often think about, who have I not connected with in a while, and who do I need to connect with? And we're already having that problem, the church that I serve at. And we're not a mega church. We're not huge.
We're not.
So and that's important, for me to be able to continue to think through that. With our elders here, where I serve. So, and I know you've mentioned the same. You kind of have a list of a running thing where you're meeting with so-and-so, flip back to my list, oh yeah, he's got this pet and this is family members in the hospital or what. You kind of
Being
take those
intentional
notes
to
to
learn.
go deeper.
Yeah. So
Right.
whenever I meet with somebody, I'll take a note of, some things from their personal lives. So when I come back around a month later and have another conversation, there's a conversation starter, and it lets them know I was paying attention and I care.
Yeah.
If you don't care, or I'll speak for myself. If I don't care, I'm not going to take notes. I'm like, well, whatever. I got other things I got to do. Come on, that's nice.
Yeah. And also I think it's really tempting too when we think about the accolades and the resume virtues. We lose sight of those things.
Yeah. Do you measure your character? Are you measuring the right thing, or are you measuring the accolades? The accolades are about me. It's all about me, right? It's about polishing those off, putting them on the shelf, or getting the wows or the pats on the back or the better parking space, the higher pay raise or whatever that is. But those things don't transform people's lives. Plain and simple, they don't. And if you're a leader or an aspiring leader, leadership is about others. It really is about serving others and helping them rise up to the potential they don't realize they have.
Absolutely.
So are you living by resume virtues? Are you living by eulogy virtues?
That's a legacy question.
It is.
Really.
It is. Resume is about me, so I look good on paper. Yeah. Eulogy is, man, this person had such a huge impact in my life because X, Y, Z. Right?
And there's nothing wrong with accolades and resumes. We make sure
not.
that
nothing wrong with a bigger paycheck either.
Nothing wrong with a bigger paycheck, bigger company, or whatnot. But I think it's a perspective and it's a character, because at the end of the day, people see the breadth of what we do, but they're going to feel the depth of it.
Yeah, that was a really good quote you came up with as we were studying. I'm like, dang, that's good. We're going to write that one down. That was good. They see the breadth but feel the depth. That was real insightful in your part.
You.
Yes. I like that a lot.
Yeah, see the breadth but feel the depth. And that's something obviously, I've seen you and some of the, leaders that I aspire to.
Thank you.
I've seen that in their life where, even like my dad, he's been a small town, small New England town pastor for, like 30 years or more now. And, he always dreams of bigger and addition, more people and all that.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, he doesn't let that distract him. And I think that's super important, because he lives and breathes this whole idea of people they're going to see that. Oh yeah, they see it, but they feel your personal connections with them and your the depth of your leadership. But that goes along to what you had shared with me some years ago now. But when somebody leaves your presence, they don't really remember what you said as much as they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, people, it's that old saying, we've said it before in the podcast, it's about people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Along the same lines, yeah, definitely.
And then once they leave your presence, how that imprint they've left on you remains with you, right? We don't forget about that. I think about the last time I saw a particular leader, and the last conversation is still impressed on me when I think about it, right? Their encouragement, their aspirations for me, and what have you.
Yeah.
It leaves behind. Yeah. So we leave imprints behind.
Yeah. And our imprints too, they're contagious. We don't want to forget that, like Remember the Titans, attitude reflects leadership. I've used that one before.
Yeah.
That's a sign that, you do have good influence and impact on others. And it's also a sign if you have bad impact and bad influence, because the attitude is going to reflect those who are leading those folks. So think about that as well, as we kind of think about going deeper rather than wider, depth versus breadth. And, the various authors, I think it's you, I heard say it first, and then you were referring to Maxwell.
And others have said it as well.
Yeah, they're quoted as saying, we teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. That's like one of your favorites.
It is. One of my very favorites. Yeah, it is. Because it's so true. More is caught than taught is the way I sometimes will word that. And when I was a youth pastor, I would teach my volunteer leaders, hey, these teenagers are going to be watching you more than listening to you. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be emulating you more than applying the principles or lessons you talk about. They're going to see if you're living them out. And that's for all leadership positions. It just isn't limited to teenagers and watching adults or children watching adults. as adults, we watch each other, don't
Yeah.
we? And we aspire to one leader or another and what they've done and haven't done. So
Yeah, it's interesting too because I've also been able to see this connection with my experience in the building construction fields. Back when I used to frame houses, we did mostly commercial stuff, but we did a good number of residential houses. I was on a crew, a boss at the time, really, really good man. Great family, had, good character. He pushed us to do things correctly and efficiently, not cut corners. He would very much compare our work to his, and he had years of experience, and so he would want us to be at that same level. But he would train guys. He would give promotions, but he really focused on the depth with his core crew. And so we became part of that core crew, do breakfast together every Friday or whatever that looked like at the time. Take care of us, get us new boots, new, various clothing for the job and whatnot. Do the Christmas parties, those things that, if you've been on a construction crew before, kind of throwing you the bone, right? But what it did is it served to, we're part of this group and he does care. And we also get to see how he, talked on the phone with his wife. We get to meet her and the kids at some of these Christmas parties, kind of see him and the influence he had in his community and his church and with his family and friends. And he would allow that to kind of spill into how he ran his company. Yeah. We had a couple of, we used to call them charity cases. Yep. A couple of guys are like, why is this dude still working with us? Like, and he would, but he would set the tone and he would say, no, he's going to continue to work with us. I'm hoping that we can he never used the word like rehabilitation, but you might as well have used that word. Yeah. He used his company and his resources to try and help people, as opposed to, I'm just going to build bigger and better things. No, he went deeper with a lot of how he ran his business.
Well, you said he sets the tone, and that's the culture. He set a culture for his organization, his people, right? And Peter Drucker has a famous quote that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes.
So a lot of our character will spill over into that culture. So one of the ways to get a thumbprint or a pulse on how we're doing is to look at our culture that we've created. You're going to create one, whether it's intentional or not, but I think you have greater opportunity when you are intentional about it. Yeah. So culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah, and when the breath begins to explode, because it might, you may have opportunities to, oh my goodness, I can grow my company. Like I can like double this, or triple it, or whatever. You're going to want to make sure your culture is one of depth before you do that. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. And there's this other point of, is the growth inside of you ready for the potential growth coming on the outside for your company? Because that growth, that success will bring greater stress and pressures. And we want to make sure there's going to be an equilibrium inside our very core for when that does happen, that we're able to handle it and respond with it well. Yeah, we've all seen people. I remember, you go back and look at all the lottery ticket winners, and where are they today? Bankrupt, in prison, in trouble, whatever it is, because what was inside wasn't equalized to the success. Right.
They couldn't handle the breath by the time it came.
Yeah, they couldn't. They weren't ready for it. They weren't practiced for it. So, again, we're not saying everybody's perfect or can become perfect in their character. We're all in the same boat in that regards, and we all have growing to do. The question is, are we going to be intentional about it?
Yeah. And that's I think the most exciting part of this whole thing. I mean, you talk about the key to depth, right? Is character, which we've kind of fleshed out. And I think it's Dr. Jeff Doolittle. Yes, there's a Dr. Doolittle out there. He's quoted as saying, a leader's character determines how knowledge, skills, and abilities are applied. And so when you're thinking, am I ready for the breath to explode of my company, my organization, whatever I'm doing? Again, it comes right back to the character, because how you are going to exercise knowledge and skills and your abilities, that's character is going to determine that. And so if you've been able to go deep with yourself, if you've been able to concentrate on going deep with those that you're leading and influencing, that is controllable. It is. And I think that's exciting. It's not something that's up in the stars, unreachable, unattainable. This is just one decision. I learned it this way when I was younger. Every decision we make helps to build and shape who we become and our character. And I learned it through this phrase, our choices create habits, our habits create a lifestyle, and our lifestyle becomes our character. Yeah. In other words, when you repeat choices, they become habits, whether they're good or bad. Right. And then when you feed those habits by those choices, eventually it becomes a lifestyle, just a way that you live your life. Yeah. And then your lifestyle ultimately starts to spill out onto other people, obviously. Yeah. And then it becomes to be so routine, that's who you become. Yeah. So your character. So choices, habits, lifestyle, character.
And just on a personal story, I've have a personal goal of trying to get one more promotion before I retire.
Yeah, you've shared that before. Yeah.
But unfortunately, at my company right now, the opportunities for growth have really dried up. Business needs are all filled. There's no real opportunity or need for higher placement in the career fields that I'm interested in. So the question is, am I going to focus on breadth or am I going to focus on depth, as I wait for that opportunity to come along? Yeah. As Jared said, I like to say, grow where you're planted. So that's become my focus, to grow right now where I am and where I'm planted. So John Maxwell has one more quote we want to share with you before we go. John, never heard of him. He says, talent is a gift, but our character is a choice, and we have the power to determine it. Yeah. You have the power to determine your character.
You can do it.
You can. We're not going to go from here to perfection. It just won't happen. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. And if you want to be intentional about your progress with your character. So,
yeah. Absolutely. No, I think, again, just to kind of recap, think depth versus breadth, especially when you're talking about leadership, as in adding value to others and using your influence to do it. Indeed. Think, how deep can I go? What kind of connections can I make? Because think through, your character plays the biggest part in that. We didn't even talk about building trust, but that really is what you're going to be doing as you do this. We'll save that for another day. We've talked about it before. So think breadth versus depth, think character, think eulogy virtues over resume virtues.
That's a good way. That's a good word picture to summarize. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in and listening or watching. Look forward to seeing you again next time. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe.
Absolutely.
Hope you take care.
Have a good one.
Bye.